So my competition experience went from club level to world level overnight with nothing in between. So why did I do it? How did it turn out? And what did I get from it? Let's find out. So most of you follow me know that I don't really compete in archery. I teach it, I coach it, but I don't really do competitions. It's taken a lot of my life to run the club and to keep on doing what I do. And we never really got into the momentum of running regular shooting competitions. So there's not much hunger and drive to do competitions. But when I found out that the World Indoor Series was having a stage in Sydney, in Australia for the first time, I thought that this was going to be it. Like, if I was ever going to do any kind of international competition, this would be the first step. So I entered. Now, everybody who does any kind of competition will have hurdles on the way there, whether they're experienced or inexperienced. And for me, I had a lot of hurdles. For one, it's getting to the competition mindset to begin with, upping my training routine from maybe once a week on a good week to once every day, if not shooting, then conditioning, developing new form, tuning new equipment, getting new arrows, having a new process. Yeah, it was a pretty big mess. And oh, by the way, I hadn't actually shot indoor ever before. It's a different format, different target. I had zero practice going in. This is basically how not to prepare for competition. Knowing that, I didn't really expect a lot from me in terms of points and competition. What I expected instead was to really test my mental game. Now, to be honest, my mental game in archery has always been weak. I tend to be very negative and destructive when doing archery. You know, I'm the sort of person who does archery as a heightened sense of focus and concentration. So when I don't get that and it breaks, I tend to feel pretty bad about myself. I keep myself down a lot when I do archery. I often don't find it very fun because I don't have the positive vibe. So I wanted to approach this as a way to restore a strong mental game. It was never really about winning the competition. That was not going to happen with people there. But it was about winning that personal battle and earning that self-respect. So the event was held at the Whitlam Leisure Centre in Liverpool, and it was hosted by the Liverpool City Archers. And like I said, it was the first World Archery event, or an international archery event, hosted in the Southern Hemisphere, and specifically in Sydney, Australia. It was pretty warm while I was there. The first few days were like 30 plus degrees on the outside, and it was quite smoky. So I know people were about the fires. Sydney wasn't burning, by the way. There was some reports that Sydney was on fire and people being evacuated. That's the wrong place and wrong time. There were some concerns, but it's mostly with the air quality, not with the fire in Sydney. So I think some people are pulled out because of that, unfortunately. But the event was held indoors, so it didn't really affect many of us. While it wasn't smoky indoors, it was really humid. Apparently the air conditioner wasn't working 100%. It was leaking over the shooting line. Apparently the past few days, people talk about raining indoors. I felt it later on, but it was something which, given how humid it was, it didn't throw my game off, but it definitely was something you had to adapt to. You don't normally think of humidity in indoors at a competition like this, but I'm glad I brought my towel with me, because every shot, my hand was sweaty. I had to wipe my hand, wipe my grip between every shot. Otherwise, it would just slide off and hit the next target. So some interesting conditions indoors, which I didn't expect. So on day one, in the practice session, we checked in. Very simple registration process. Most things were done online already. All you had to do was turn up, check your name off, get your official badge, which tells you that you're allowed to walk in the area, and then you can set up your equipment. It's basically your typical local indoor shoot, so there's a lot more people there. And this is a fairly low-key event. So if you're going to say in Nîmes right now for the indoor championship, it's like 1,000 archers. Here was more like 100, 200 at most. So it was a fairly big indoor event for our local competitions, but it was pretty much run the same way. So we signed in, set up our equipment, we get our equipment checked. So Compound and Recurve need to check that their equipment meets the rules, which of course ours did, because that's what we've practiced to do. And then we grabbed our target face and we picked the target and we basically just practiced, and that was it. We had a 2-hour practice or something in the morning, so you can do whatever you want. You can just practice wherever you want, whoever you wanted to practice with, and it was mostly get warmed up, get used to the format and environment. But most people just shot. Some people didn't turn up on that day because practice is practice. The main idea is competition. But for those who turned up, it was just basically shoot. It was divided into 2 sessions. The morning was the recurve men and the compound women, and the afternoon was the recurve women and the compound men. And that's the same format we had for the actual qualification round. So to fit everybody in, we didn't shoot all at once, it was split into 2 groups. For our group, we were quite fortunate because we had enough to shoot just 1 flight, whereas the second half, the afternoon group, they had to shoot A's and B's, so the A, B, C, D, so A's and B shot first, C's and D shot second, and then we'll rotate, which took a bit longer, so our session ran ahead of time because we weren't doubling up. But that was quite a fortunate coincidence. So yeah, practice was tough, let's put it that way. So apart from the humid conditions and getting used to the format, I still wasn't used to my form yet. Like, I was still working on my shoulder alignment and expansion. I hadn't figured out my clicker yet, and honestly I think I was just being too conservative. Like, I was not nervous because there was no points, so it was not a competition, but I was definitely spraying the target left and right, so my execution was still sloppy. I was not confident in expanding because, again, I've come from like 2 weeks of doing a form rebuild. I'm nowhere near where I should be in terms of my form completion. So it was like, do I revert to my old form and power it through, or do I kind of take the risk and try to use new form and calibrate my bow with my new form? So I was kind of in a tough spot on the first day. I survived. I pushed myself physically and mentally. I didn't kick myself down very hard. There was some concerns, like of course I want to hit scoring shots, but it's not as easy as it looks. But overall, I managed to physically get through. I didn't feel too exhausted. I felt that my form and alignment were good enough where I wouldn't physically wreck myself, and that was actually a sub goal. Mentally, I had to maintain my mental game, but physically, I tend to collapse after like 30 shots. So after like 100 plus, I felt like I was doing pretty well, and I could keep on going. So that was a pretty good first practice session. It got me in the mindset of shooting indoor. Did it prepare me all the way? Well, not really, but it was pretty good to go through a whole practice session and still maintain that gas in the tank. Day 2 was the qualification. So again, we had the morning session, the afternoon session. We started a little earlier, we got a bit of warm up, and then we went to our qualification round. So we had the standard indoor round is 30 arrows, so maximum score is 300, and we did 2 of those. So it's 60 arrows, 600 points maximum. So like I said, I wasn't that prepared to go into it. Still hadn't figured out my equipment, my clicker length, and everything. So started very shaky. I think I missed my very first shot. So it kind of went to the right, and then it went to the left, and then hit the middle. So on average, I was hitting the middle, but it took me like 2 or 3 shots to find the center point there. The things I was struggling the most with was sight alignment. Because of indoor, you have to be more active and looking for your sight to make sure it's exactly on the dot. I'm not used to seeing that, so I went cross-eyed a few times, as noobs do. If it was outdoor, I'd probably hit middle a lot easier, but indoor, trying to look at the sight was a little tough for me. It took me a while to get used to it. So I sprayed a few shots. I got a few good ends where I hit like gold, but then I have like miss and like 8 or something. So it was a weird pattern for me, but I was eventually getting the hang of where I needed to aim, how to execute my shot, and actually, as the event moved on, I felt my form was evolving. So I was beginning to take more aggressive risks in changing things, changing my sight setting, and more importantly, changing my clicker setting. Because once I became confident in what I thought the shot should feel like, I began to open up a lot more. So I was less compressed and powering through, and more like, okay, my stance is here, my shoulders are here, and the clicker should be off now, and it goes off. So I go, oh, Alright, so I've seriously pushed the clicker a millimeter up each time to find the sweet spot. And this is a strange thing to do in the middle of a world competition, but sometimes you've got to experiment and take risk, and that's what champions do. You could do the same thing the whole day and not find out what was wrong. So I took the risk and it actually worked better for me. So that was a nice rewarding experiment on the spot, but it worked quite well. I noticed other things in my form were sliding into place, things like the setup. So I was able to feel the coil in my upper body and get my shoulders in the gun barrel, which I was practicing to do. So that was getting more comfortable. I was definitely getting my hook right. I felt I was slipping downwards, but during practice, I felt the hook going upwards, which is what it should be. So I felt the fingers slide in the right position, the pressure was right, the anchor felt good, the shoulder alignment felt pretty good, and overall, I was getting a lot more stable. One thing that really surprised me was on my once my clicker was right, my release and fall throughs were much more explosive. So instead of having that limp, slow click and then let the bow roll forward, I found myself naturally having much more dynamic release because I was less fearful of the clicker. I was less fearful of having too short or too long a draw length, and I was hitting the spot and just powering through, and I felt really good about it. There were great patterns where I was hitting first shot in the gold and second and third was somewhere else, but I was getting more of a rhythm going on, which was something which I didn't really feel before. The other thing which surprised me was even looking at the photos. Like I saw the photo on day one in practice and my form looked horrible. Like I was like hunched over and like it was really bad arching back stuff. It was like, wow, I've never shot that before. No wonder it felt pretty hard. But when I looked at day two, I was much straighter. I felt that the posture was more in line. It was like a different person the second day. So I definitely felt like I shot like a different person. It was a pretty intense event. Like it went on for a long time, but I felt that as it went on, I was getting better and better. And that was actually the goal. It was, again, not the score which mattered, it was the mental game. Like I said, in the past for competitions, I would feel worse and worse as the competition went on. Like I would miss a shot and go, oh, that was a shit shot. And it would demotivate me, I would talk myself down, and by the end of the day, I felt pretty negative about it. It was like done and over. Whereas here, I felt like I was like, whoa, okay, I could do better next shot, and I could do better next shot. All right, that felt good. Let's do it again next shot. And even though I might miss the shot, I didn't think, oh, that was a crappy shot, I'm not gonna do it again. It was more like, okay, that was a bad shot, what should I do better next time? And I kept having that positive self-talk where I'm like, okay, that was a miss, that was an 8, and that was an 8. That's a pretty good set right there. Next one might be, okay, that's a 6, that's an 8, that's a 7, hanging in there. And then the next one might be like 10, 9, 8. And I'm like, whoa, okay, we're starting to look like a real archer now. So those positive builds and those swings were like what I was focusing on the most. In fact, it was like the one where the official photographer was standing in front of us taking photos, and that particular shot where she took a photo was my best shot. I was like, whoa, I'm on camera, I better look good. And it looked good and felt good, but my last shots weren't good. But like I said, I didn't remember the bad shots, I remember the good shots. And that was kind of what my conquest, that was my personal battle, was to not think about the negatives, but only think about the positives. And that's a really tough battle for anyone shooting. What shocked me was that when I checked the score at the very end, I was horrified actually that I wasn't last, because I thought, you know what, I'm last, I'm doomed to be last, but actually I wasn't last. So I went over to David, because we had a thing going on our channel, on the Facebook page, where we were racing to the bottom, and he said, well, he's definitely gonna be last. And I went, no, I'll fight you for it. And it was a really close fight, and but it was such a great time to be with David, because he's only been doing it for like over a year or something. And it was his first like major event, and he felt really good about himself. He wanted to go out there and try it, and I just want to say, well done, David. You stuck it out. You hung in there, and well done for your first event. Actually, a few of us did really well in pushing up to a higher level. So people really challenged themselves at the event. Some people really grew and they figured out what they were doing in the last moment, and the score showed it. So yeah, it was fantastic. Top tier with top tier, but the rest of us were really pushing ourselves, and it felt great by the end. Now, day 3 was the main event. That was the final. So at the end of day 2, we had the initial elimination rounds for the categories with a lot of people. So top 32 went through. There was an elimination round, and then the people made it through that first round went to day 3 and the second round, the quarterfinals, semis, and of course the grand final. Again, the vibe was different. Like last round was more semi-serious, as people were just shooting and doing their best. This one was, you can tell people were actually starting to matter. They started to care a lot more about their performance. So they've made the cut. Now it's knockouts, and knockouts is more survival to fittest. And those who can maintain their composure will go through. So we had a few upsets, we had a few juniors defeat seniors. So it was really amazing to see the kids, especially who did the youths, go in the open tournament and rank really high and knock people out. My favourite match was actually watching young Brandon. I was his quarterman for a bit, and I was watching him take on Taylor Worth, who was Australia's #1. And it was really interesting to see how they prepared for it mentally. You can see Taylor playing like games on his phone and just zoned out completely. And young Brandon is his first big tournament. You know, he was taking on the Australian #1, and he actually took points from him. There were a couple of tight ends. So Brandon did an amazing job to get this far, and at the end he turned to me and said, you know, this is like a boss battle. So I went, I like you, kid. I like this attitude. A boss battle it was. So you can imagine the boss music playing, and of course it was Taylor, and he's a machine. There's one thing to like do it yourself, but to watch actual good elite archers, oh man, he was a machine. He was so precise with his movements. It was a beauty to watch. It's one thing to see on TV or on YouTube, to actually stand behind him and watch him shoot. It's absolutely amazing to see the mental focus and the physical process come together. And I felt bad for Brandon. He kind of got a little emotional at the end when he lost, but Taylor didn't pull any shots. He was, as he was being pushed by this young kid, he just went beast mode, and he got like perfect exits at the last end, and looked at the target and went, you know, that's mad respect there. That you should be honored to lose to that, because that was an amazing end. So after knockouts, the arena was set up, so you have the more familiar one-on-one format, which you normally see on World Archery TV. So we had the bronze and gold medal matches with the compound men and women, and then the recurve men and women. So yeah, that was really fun to watch too. Like, again, it's one thing to watch on TV or watch on YouTube, but when you're there live, like in the arena, you really feel that tension, because you want people to win. You want people to, you know, not miss the 9, but at the same time, when someone gets like a 9 instead of a 10, you're like, oh man, will he get a 9? Will he get a 10? Will he pull ahead? Will he fall behind? I mean, that's a really tough mental game, and as competitors, I can only imagine what it's like to be in the spot and to focus on hitting that gold spot consistently. Whereas in the audience, we're like, man, I hope he wins. So, it was really, really intense. Like, you can really feel that relief, or you can feel that disappointment, that the whole thing just sinks in. You know, your favorite archer gets an 8, and like, oh no, there's no coming back from that. So it was really amazing. Again, well done to everybody involved. Those who made it through to the finals really gave us a great show. I think overall, everybody who did the event on all 3 days, and every other supporting the event, I think everyone's done a great job. I think by the end we all pushed ourselves, and we did our best. So well done to all the competitors. It was a really, really good competition. So now that I've got my first international event under my belt, what can I get from this? Firstly, indoor is harder than it looks. Now, I know a lot of us basically only shoot indoor because that's the venue we have available. But most of us who shoot outdoor only, or mostly outdoor, may have a hard time switching to indoor. And it's coming from me, who has never shot indoor before. 18 meters isn't easy. 18 meters is a closer distance, yes, but it's a hard target. Now, the standard target for indoor 18 meters is 40 centimeters. Now, this might seem quite generous. Now, the actual indoor target, first remember, this is like 1 meter away. At 18 meters, it's quite a small dot. Secondly, you don't have the entire 4 centimeter face. All the outer rings are cut out. So all you see is the first blue ring, which is 6 inwards, and there's 3 spots. So not only are you aiming for only the center of the target, which can really put your sighting off if not used to it. The second thing is you're shooting at 3 spots, not the same spot over and over again. So we have 1, 2, and 3 on the traffic light target. You have to aim slightly off each time. It doesn't feel exactly the same, and there is a mental component in figuring out which pattern or which order you go in. So there is that. So keep in mind that because you've got a much smaller target area, only the blue ring inwards, or the first blue ring, it explains why you see a lot of misses on scorecards. Basically, everyone who scored below 400 in the qualification had issues with hitting the target, either mostly left or right, or high or low. It was very unforgiving. I said that if there was like one more ring on the target, we get probably an extra like 50 points because I would miss like slightly to the left or slightly to the right, as many people who were starting out would do. So yeah, I think the people who scored above 400 and 500 had no issues with hitting the target in the center, whereas people below 400 like me were struggling with the left and right alignment. So that's where things went a little funny. So it's not as easy as it looks. You do need to practice specifically for indoor. You can't just go from outdoor, have an 18 sight setting and then shoot indoor. There is a difference in the way you aim at the target. Number 2, you don't have to be good to enter tournaments. I say this a lot, and it's actually a problem we consistently have with archery clubs and competitions, is a lot of people get freaked out by competition. Just the word competition means, oh, I don't want to do it, I'm not good enough. And that's the point of competition, is to become good. Like, you don't become good, you don't be prepared if you don't do it. Like, you should be doing competitions as a way to get yourself out of the comfort zone, to see how good you actually are, and to motivate yourself to do more competition. It's just something which we don't want to force people to do. You really don't know what you're missing out on. And it doesn't matter if it's your local club competition or whether it's an open entry world event. Go in, because other people are doing it too. Not because they're good, but because they want to. And remember, even if you finish last, you're still very much ahead of the large number of people who don't do these events. You signed up, you did it, you should be proud of it. And finally, you meet great people. I mean, like, I met so many people who were just passionate about competing in archery, who just want to do their best, especially all the young kids who were there. Like, they were basically competing against their heroes, and for some of them actually beating their heroes. It was just really, really amazing. It was just that positivity of meeting people who want to be them, who want to compete, who want to do their best. I've said it before, but I'm not often around this sort of mindset where I'm there to help people and guide people to reach this goal, but actually meet people who are well on the way. It was like, wow, I want to be more like these people. So it was amazing to meet people who've been doing this for years, who've been competing even just recently, but who are well on the way to success. You can tell in the future now, year or two, that these people will be pushing for national team spots. They might be pushing for Olympic spots in 4 years' time, who knows. So it was just really good to see and meet all these new talented people who really wore their hearts on their sleeves, and it mattered to them. So it was, just really great to see these people. For me especially, it was quite different because I met people who watch me. I met my fans and my viewers. I can say that now. I say all this a lot. I work in a bubble, so I don't normally meet people outside of my shed. So the people who come to my club, I might shake hands with and say hi to, but I don't really go outside my club. So going to an arena where a lot of people know me, people who started because of me, some who competed because of me. Those were the people who I felt that really special connection. It was really motivating to meet you guys. It was nice to get the feedback and to get the inspirational story about how you started out. Even listen to some of your struggles about how hard it was to start and what you were missing. That really motivated me to think more positively about what I've done for the online archery community, and gave me more ideas to work with and pushing forward and understanding what you needed to continue your archery journeys. I know some really funny stories too. I mean, there were parents who were chasing after me because the kids too shy to ask for photos. And there was, I was buying merchandise, I was buying the shirts, and they were like, you should buy like this mug, you should buy this bucket hat, you should buy this water bottle because it looks great on your channel. So, just having that small celebrity fame felt kind of funny to me, but it was a great role to play. I had a great time meeting everybody out there. And overall, it was just a really wonderful experience, everything. So yeah, overall, it was a great life experience. I'm really happy to have done it. It was a late 2019 goal. It was a great way to start 2020, and yeah, it just really gave me that energy and that motivation to push myself forward for the year ahead. So I'm looking forward to seeing where this takes me. I think everybody who went there brought something out of it. So again, well done to everybody at the event. Thank you to Liverpool City Archers for hosting the event. Thank you all the volunteers who made the event possible, and especially the ones I met and spoke with. And again, thank you to everybody who attended. It was great to meet you, great to compete against you, and I really hope that you got something positive out of it, and looking forward to seeing more of you in the future.